What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today I'm going to talk about Mogul's newest property. They call it the Krakow. It's which I think is going to be pretty funny when we start to look at the crime map, but that is an aside. That is a little bit, we call that foreshadowing in this business. And it's not really going to be a crack house. So if you didn't catch what I was trying to say, but it does have something a little. It's I was a little alarmed by the crime map though, but I don't want to spoil too much. Um, it's a 6 bedroom, 4.5 bath home, almost 4,000 square feet. Their plan is to use this as a short term rental, and they have 75% levered, paying 600,000 for it. When I'm looking at short-term rentals, so it's in Houston, Texas. The first thing I usually want to do is jump into the market. But I just did a video recently about another property they have. So I think if you look at that one, you can see my thoughts on the Houston market in general. It's got all the things that I like. It's a fast-growing population. It is a market where you have strong landlord protections or strong property rights relative to a lot of other large markets. Um, so it's one that I like in general. So I'm gonna skip that in this video, although it is something like you definitely want to look at the submarkets, right? And so one of the things, and they actually mention it, but when I pull up the map, you can see this is the property. It's right between Texas Southern University and University of Houston, right? And so those are two things that I wanted to know more about, right? And so I went to our friend Wikipedia because that's where they're really good at pulling together a whole bunch of data. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like them as far as for factual claims or whatnot. People think there's some bias in it, but if all you're doing is pulling numbers like uh, they're pulling their U.S. Census data or like this stuff where they're saying how many students are in each school. I feel pretty good about it for that. So University of Houston, 46,000 students. That's a ton of students. That's a big school, right? So right away, that I think that creates a lot of opportunity for the right type of property for a short-term rental. I think I kind of like that because one of the things, people that are away from home attending school, if somebody's coming to visit them, they'll very often stay in a short-term rental. We see that a little bit here in San Antonio, where near UTSA, there's some demand. And then I pulled up Texas Southern. It's quite a bit smaller of a school. 8,000, but that's not a small. It's not a tiny school. And so both of those, being positioned right between those two, I thought that was pretty interesting. If this is something you were going to invest in this property, I'd suggest digging in even further. One thing that I did do is, zoomed in on the map and noticed, okay, we also have a high school here. Um, One of the things I like to do, and okay, Yates High School in Houston. You just Google, right, Yates High School, Houston, and then uh, great schools rating. That's one that they're consistent just about everywhere. Will have a great schools rating. Let's see if we can pull this one up here. And it receives a rating of 2 out of 10. And sometimes you want to make sure that it's the one that you're thinking of, right? Because sometimes it'll pull up one with the same name. And so you want to, okay, so obviously this is not San Antonio. Let me just double check because I don't see. Yeah, let's look at the address here. There we go. That's the one, right? We got the Frenchie's Chicken there. We got Frenchie's Chicken right there. So that's the one. So this is not a very highly rated school. I actually didn't expect it to be. It is just based on the location. Inside the loops in Houston, there's a lot of a lot of the schools aren't rated great. Um, if I were, from a uh, appreciation perspective, I'd much rather have a very highly rated school right there. The other thing that I noticed though when I was looking at this is it is right on the road that is attached to the school. And one of the things that I'd want to do if I were in this market is just come over here on a school day and see Is there traffic that goes in and out of here every morning and every afternoon? There's no parking on the streets, right? You see no parking signs on both sides, and that's sort of problematic for a short-term rental. Let's see, where are we? I think this property right here, is this it? Let's take a look. I don't think that's it. Let's see. Oh, it is. That's the one. Okay. Yep. So, okay, so we've got, you got the two-car garage, and you can easily put two cars, but maybe you could tandem park two more. But if we look at what they're trying to do here, they mention, where do they mention it? At some point, they mentioned that they're trying to put 12 guests in here. Um, so 12 guests is only four cars going to be enough, and is tandem parking, are we going to be happy with that? That's something I'm a little bit worried about, right? Especially if this is a busy road where we've got a bunch of kids driving up and down this road, to get into school every morning and every day when school lets out. So that's one of the things I'd want to really look at. When we're buying stuff and it's we're doing it remotely like this. There's not a great way that I know to find this out. Some places you can actually find traffic pattern maps. I didn't find one here. It doesn't mean there's not one that exists. So if you do see one, that'd be interesting. It's just something I'd be a little bit worried about, and maybe why this home wouldn't be the ideal spot relative to some others. Um, but it is, that's not something, I don't think that's not a hard and fast, I'm going to rule it out. One of the things I like to do right away is look at all the pictures. Um, this is sort of, even though I like to do this early, it's one of the least important things because a lot of the stuff with the home itself you can change, right? And some of it's going to be expensive, but it's not necessarily. Okay, see, this is, I don't know, that's a little bit worrisome that that's over the edge, but it's not, the end of the world. That just is not the best construction there. They actually might have just put that boot around on the bottom after. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Be something that I would look into in the property inspection. Did they already give us the inspection on this one? There were so many things that I wanted to look at on this one, um, that I didn't get through everything before I started. Uh, yeah, they do have the inspection report already. So let's see if they call that out. Because there were a couple of things, I'm trying to not record 100% of the due diligence I'm doing on every property. This is one where there were a couple of things that jumped out early on, and I just wanted to point it out. Um, obviously, I'm scrolling through this very fast. For putting money into a property like this, you definitely want to really look through everything. It's one of the things I made this comment about the last time I looked at a Mogul property. They don't really tell us what they're going to fix and what they're not going to. Although this one, just from a quick scroll so far, looks a lot better than that last one we were looking at. I'm really just trying to get down and see if they say anything about that. One little thing I just noticed, because it's something I've seen even in new construction, right, where it's just not done well, but it's not a huge problem. It's more I don't like how it looks than anything else. I don't think that that's going to fall over or something, but it is, if you're putting guests in a home, yeah, it's not even pictured on the home inspection. Not a big surprise. Um, Sometimes I can just get a little bit nitpicky when I'm looking at stuff. Um, yeah, but anyway, that was a weird aside. Sorry about that. What One of the things, so okay, first thing I did, like, looked at the area, and we already talked about this is a market that I like. It's an interesting part of San Antonio. If it's a short-term rental, which is the plan for San Antonio, I'm sorry, that's where I live. That's not where this property is. Again, this isn't Houston. It's been a long day. But so, one of the things I want to do right away is pull it up on Airdna, because they're going to use it as a short-term rental. I plugged in 6 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, 12 guests, because that's what I gathered from their page. And let me see where I actually got that from, because I know I said, yeah, right here. 6 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, accommodations, 12. And one thing that's interesting is this square footage doesn't match up with the square footage on their other page. Um, that's always a little bit worrisome. But luckily, I also have uh, this. I have the MLS here in this area, and I do have it on the mode where it's okay to show clients and potential clients. So I think we're okay to look at this. See, I have client friendly, so there shouldn't be any data that you're not allowed to see. And so this says 3218. So this smaller one, right? I should have mentioned this. It was built in 2020, so it's a relatively new, which is why that home inspection looked pretty good. What's really weird is there are 3 listings for this home that are all active. None of them have any pictures. I have no idea what they're doing there. So that's pretty strange. But I did look it up to see that, to see the square footage. One of the things that I like to know, especially when we're talking about, Airbnb operations, is do they really have enough square footage? Like sometimes you'll see people put 12 beds in a home, and okay, there's room for 12 beds, but there's not room for 12 people to eat. There's not room for 12 people to sit and watch TV or hang out or whatever they're going to do. And so, just because it's 6 bathrooms or 6 bedrooms doesn't necessarily mean you can put 12 guests in there. But when I look at 3,200 square feet, I'm okay with that. I think that's pretty good. And then also when we were looking at the pictures, I should have pointed this out. It's something to think about when you're doing here. But you can see, the interior is pretty spacious as far as common areas. And there weren't a ton of pictures actually, but you can see that there should be room for that, for a big dining table and big. I know there's a living room picture too. I might have saw it somewhere else. I spent a lot of time looking at other listings and whatnot. But so it's one of the things you want to do, right? And if you don't have the MLS access, you could look on Zillow, you can look on Realtor, you can look on Homes.com or Redfin, and they don't always all have the same exact info, right? Sometimes you'll get some info from some that are not on others. They don't even all flow through with the same picture sometimes. But anyway, what we were doing, we were just trying to verify the size, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and we're going to put 12 people in there, right? And so let's go back to AirDNA. I put that 6 beds, 4.5 baths, 12 people. AirDNA predicts 122,000 in revenue, which is fantastic. So for if I'm buying a $600,000 home here in San Antonio, the ideal, like what I'm really looking for, is a 20% revenue to price ratio for the purchase price, right? That's not even including when I'm adding in furniture and equipment and everything, and then but I know that if I find one that's 20, then my math, I should be able to back into it. But really, if you get into the high teens, a lot of times you'll get something that works. um, and so 122 right off the bat, I was pretty excited to see that. When you see these though, um, and these are all the comps that it pulled up. uh, they're not they're not what did I want to show you about it? So there's some really low ones, right? And so, okay, this says sleeps 12 and it's only uh $30,000 in revenue. That was a little worrisome. You have a 61,000. And so whenever you have this, you really want to look into the individual comps and see, the ones that are that. Oh, and let me tell you this real quick too. Jumping all over the place tonight, but their revenue that they're looking for, let me see if is, let's see, their top line revenue. Uh, it's not even on here. It's on their analysis tab. Let's see. I was on this one first. I should have just kept going. Yeah, their top line rental revenue that they're looking for is 96,000. And so, to have AirDNA giving us a 122 number is pretty exciting. I don't think that you have to. And so, being that you can get something that's lower, I'd like to see what that is. And so, but right off the bat, I saw this one, 6 bedrooms, 4 baths, luxury home, downtown. I want to click into that comparable. If you don't pay for AirDNA, you won't get to look at these comparables, right? It'll spit out that top line number, but you won't see the comps. And so if you're doing that, you might want to go to other sites. I believe Awning is still free. You can go to the Airbnb itself and actually at least pull up the properties that are in the area and see what they are. But one of the things that I'm really looking for is, does this property have a pool? Here in San Antonio, the difference between a pool property and a not pool property is the difference between I'm going to buy it and I'm not. Because the revenue is just so wildly different. Like you just can't use it for a comp. But it looks like we're doing okay with this one. Let's see. Gonna go back. And the way AirDNA's windows work is really like drive me crazy with the back buttons. Always just putting this in again. This could just be me being dumb, but I end up having to do this a bunch of times. Let's see, 4.5 baths, 12 guests. But I have a hard time with their little pop-up windows when I'm looking at the comps, but not always. And that's one of the things that I really can't figure out. Okay, so we looked at that one. That would look, pretty promising. I mean, the home itself maybe looks a little bit nicer, but there was no pool, and that's the big thing that's the biggest thing. If you can hit 120,000 with a similar sized home and no pool, that's pretty exciting. You got this one here. Let's take a look. I think again, you're not going to have one. Normally, they'll put it in the description or one of the first pictures, but I think if you look at every picture, and it doesn't look like they have one, then you can be pretty confident that they don't have one. So let's see here. Yep. Uh, what am I doing? All right, good. Oh, okay, good. I didn't screw it up that time. So now I want to see, like, well, what is this one that's like making no money? What's this? What's going on here? Because I really don't understand. Two connected units. Okay, so that's interesting. Um, so are these two condos or two townhomes that are connected? Let's see if we can read and find out. Well, there's not really a lot of a description here. Hmm. But I think, it's in this one is only has 150 days available, which means it's relatively new. Normally, if there's not at least 250, I'm not putting a lot of weight into these, but let's just ignore that. One of the things that when you do this, it's not necessarily like a lot of people want to look at all your comps and take the average, but you don't. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I want to look at what are the ones that are the most comparable to my property, and then also just like want to see what's possible, right? Like what is okay, a property like mine, what's the best somebody can do with it? And then okay, maybe we're not going to hit that, but even if we fall short, like again, if we fall short of the 125, I'm still really happy with this one. Okay, this one obviously has a pool and it's only 126, and this is 6 bed, 6 bath. So this is one that I had saw earlier, and it kind of worried me a little bit because why isn't this one doing significantly better? Um, because I believe, like San Antonio, that the Houston market has to pay a big premium for pools. Um, so that one worried me, but there were enough of these that didn't have pools that were very similar size. This is 7 bedrooms, 4 baths, sleeps 14, a little bit bigger, but 111. And again, if we're just trying to get to, um, we're just trying to get to the 96 to hit their numbers, then I feel pretty good about that projection. I don't love that it doesn't have a pool. A while ago, uh, for a $600,000 home, kind of want one. I mean, I know Houston's a little bit more expensive market than San Antonio, and so maybe it's not realistic to think you can get one for there. But I wouldn't mind paying another 100,000 if it meant getting one. This does have a large enough backyard where maybe you could put one. Reminds me that I don't know. Talking about pools reminds me that just like always, I checked the flood maps. I think in Houston this is so important because you can see, we're actually pretty close to a flood zone, nowhere near close enough for it to be a problem. The flood zones always load a little bit slowly, but so that's good to know, right? Um, so like I said, we looked at the market, looked at the property itself, checked AirDNA. Valuation. Let's see, is for this one I was trying to use the MLS. Usually I'm going into um, just Realtor or Zillow or any of those, and I think that those are perfectly fine. especially for what we're doing, right? If I'm not putting a ton of money into the property, I'm okay with that, especially if they all seem to make sense when they compare to each other. Um, that is one thing that we don't get the appraisals in here like we do on Lofty, right? You just get the inspection report, purchase agreement, operating agreement. Part of that is because when this purchase is happening, this property isn't closed yet, right? So that makes it a lot different from Lofty, where some of those were buying into the entities years after the property was purchased. For these, this is the purchase of the property, right? And we're going to own it while they're getting it ready to list on Airbnb. Like it's a different scenario. Um, but it is, so it is. We don't have that appraisal yet. They might not even have gotten it, right? But anyway, so I pulled up all the one of the things that I always like to do when I'm using the MLS is just pull up the exact subdivision, see what sort of sales we have there. I actually went a full year back. Neither of these I think make very much sense. They're both quite a bit smaller. This is 1,600 square feet, and I think the other one is 2,000. You have an active that's 365, but again, it's too small. Some solds. Okay, this 432. Now and this is the subject property here. You can see all three listings are right there. But we didn't really have anything that was super comparable, right? Like the biggest one is this 550 at 2681. Um, this one does seem like it was a nicer remodel. I think it's sort of a next level compared to the subject home that we're looking at. Um, but it is also significantly smaller, right? So we'll just flip through these pictures real quick. You can see, I think this is just a nicer home, right? Let's go back and just look at this real quick. And this is something that I'm always doing, right? I'm always going back and forth. Um, I don't know. It's not crazy different, but I get that impression. Um, Part of it may be, yeah, maybe it really is a similar level. I think the brick veneer or the brick front on the other one, you know, that always just screams more money, but you can see it's only on the front, right? Like it looks like the side of that is siding. Um, yeah, so it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, right? It's giving you the impression that it's a little bit more expensive. I think that the staging here, or just the fact that it's furnished, which may, yeah, I think it is staging. I don't think it's somebody living like this, but might make it look nicer. But it, like, again, this is 600 square feet smaller or 550. And so, yeah, that gets us, that's a really good comp, right? For our 600 purchase price. And let's make sure, are those the numbers? Am I messing up those numbers? So 600 purchase price, which is 5% below the listing price. Yeah, they have it at that listing we saw. But it was really weird, right? That it was uh, where they have three and they have no pictures. I don't know what's going on, but and so what are we doing here? And plus they're doing the 87,000 reserves and closing. We do have that big fee that you pay to the platform. Again, I think that they're putting together good enough deals that I'm kind of okay with this. Um, again, I want to make sure I'm slowly putting money on the platform because I want to see, are they really paying out the types of returns that they say they're going to, right? Like if you look at this, they're looking at a 9.1% cash on cash. If they hit that revenue number that they say they will. Um, but I feel pretty good about that revenue number relative to Airbnb, except for, or Airdna, except for, um, the parking issue I mentioned worries me a little bit about this one. Oh, and I got to get back to this is why I think I'm not going to put any money in this one. As I pull up the spot crime map, um, one of the things, if you remember, we talked about every time you pull up an address, and this is the address here, not that. We'll talk about that in a second. Yep, hope you can see it's a shooting. But every time you pull up a stop crime map or spot crime map, it's going to have. Oh, wait a minute. Is this? Yeah, that's the right spot. Um, it's going to have a whole bunch of icons, but what you have to do is scroll through and see, well, how fresh are they? And if you look, all of these are like just, the 11th through the 16th, right? It's not even a week to have this many crimes. Um, that's a little bit more density than I've noticed in most of the places I've looked. A lot of them are thefts, which I think are problematic if you have guests there. Um, and then, I don't see them very often in the areas that I'm looking, but you did have a shooting right there. That's really close. I don't know if that's common. They used to have a function where you could like go back further in time, but I don't see it anymore, but they always stick this little bar on the bottom. Um, so if we search this area again, will it give us, no, it gives us the same ones. But that is that worried me, right? I mean, I think a lot of thefts, a lot of assaults. Some of the assaults, that might just be kids in school fighting, right? Kids in college fighting, because we are by a couple of college campuses. But the shooting really worried me. I don't know. So this was a worse spot crime map that I'm used to seeing. If everything else were perfect about this property, I'm not sure I would let this stop me. I'd want to dig in further, try to figure out, is this typical for this time period? Like when we really are zooming in, and I accidentally stuck that in the wrong spot. We're over here. Um, but it's just so close to some. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, if I'm looking at this, I know that some Airbnb guests do the same thing. I know when I look for an Airbnb somewhere, I like to look at what the area is like, and if people are using something similar to this, that could certainly deter some guests. So that was the biggest thing that made me think, I don't think I'm going to buy some of this one right now. I also really just don't like to buy Airbnbs in Texas for big groups that don't have a pool. I think that even if Houston isn't to the point where it's basically mandatory, in San Antonio right now, you're just not competitive if you don't have one for this type of property where you're going to have 10, 12, 14 guests. And so I'm assuming Houston's probably there already, even though it looks like it's not, right? I mean, and maybe you get so much demand from people just coming and staying close to the schools. Because I mean, you did have really good comps. Well, let's look at those comps again too, because I mean, those are operating. Oh, not there. AirDNA. Those are all operating in that same general area. Let's see. Get rid of this and just look at that map. Um, Sorry about that. My screen recorder froze again. I actually have now realized I think it's my laptop that is the problem, so I might need to get a new one of those. Although this is one of the, it's just free. So sorry about that. It does remind me that I always forget to say, please like and subscribe. If you've watched this far, I appreciate it, and so please do that. But this is one of the things, and now I don't have the right Air DNA map as I get this back up, but we're very it's the right area, right? And so we had some really good comps very close. I don't know why it's given me um, the whole thing just crashed, and so I wasn't getting exactly. Yeah, here we go. This is the one that I had before, though. But you can see. So the spot crime, it looked like you had just more of that stuff up here. A little bit, a couple. There were a couple of maybe thefts down here. But I mean, this home is really close to where we're looking at. This is the subject one. And, both of these are just surprisingly close, right? And they're doing very well. And so it's tough for me to say I don't want to buy this one for that reason. One of the things, though, that I noticed is when looking at those comps and also well, looking at some of the sales comps too, and I think it's more obvious. Ugh, It's more obvious in the pictures for some of the sale comps. What is going on here? Okay, let me see. Well, everything is just falling apart, huh? This is it though, right here. Is that the one? Yes. So a lot of the ones in the area have these fences in front of them. Have a gate that closes, and then if you look at, on the street, even that this is the street the subject property is on, and a lot of people, they've got their parking happening behind their building, right? Like you got it again here. And so it makes me wonder if you do, one of the reasons that this happens in some places is people don't want their car, even here, right? You've got, okay, you looks like you have plenty of parking, but again, they're parking behind there. Now, maybe these are multifamily, and so that's part of the issue, right? Because sometimes then you do the parking behind. But if when you're going down this street, not many of them have just the driveway sitting in the front like our property here does, right? And so maybe I don't want to have guests parking right here. Comparing that to, uh, and it's always a little bit tough. Oh, come on, give me this back, to know what these look like, because they just pick whatever they want to show you. So let's see. Oh, but this one I had looked at, uh, where, let's see, can we see that? Yeah, again, they've got a gate, right? And parking behind the gate. So that's the nearest comp to us. And then let's look at, let's close that and open the other one. This 154 and see what that's like. I think this one had just parking. Yeah, but again, so they have a driveway up front, but again, they have this rear area where you can park your vehicle. And so in this one, I mean, I didn't even look at this one when I was showing you the comps because it is just so much nicer. Um, you know, I think I skipped this one earlier, or I said that again. It's a little bit embarrassing, but I talked for a long time when my screen recorder froze and I didn't notice that the point. So if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But so yeah, where both of these have like, okay, they are good comps and they're bringing in good money and they're very close to our property. But if they're both just set up in a way where, guests can park behind the building and it creates an additional feeling of safety, um, I don't know. We've just operated some where you just get bad reviews, even if nothing happens, because guests will be like, I didn't feel comfortable with my car in the front yard there. And so that worries me a little bit about this one, right? So because of that, because it doesn't have a pool, and I mean they are getting a little discount, but it's not a huge discount, right? They're getting it for 600,000, and they were asking 623. Um, if it were me, just shopping on my own or for a client here, this would be an area I'd keep looking in. But I definitely don't think this would be the property that. Well, I mean, not the immediate area, right? Because I want to get a little bit away from. I'm just so torn by this, right? It's so surprising to me that you can have a spot crime map that looks like this and have an air DNA comps that look the way they do. But I think what I'd want to do, keep looking in this area, maybe get a little bit, maybe focusing a little bit further down here. I don't know. It's tough because as you move, it'll bring up some more. Oh, actually, though, so maybe you find an area where it's a little less dense, but also I'd really look for property that has, that gate there where you can, um, where you can park behind the property. It feels safe and secluded. I think that's something that would just, be helpful for guests. And so basically, I'm not saying I think this won't be successful. I think you certainly could be. But one of the things that when I'm investing in real estate or helping clients do it, I'm really just trying to rule out properties, right? There are so many opportunities out there. You don't have to buy every single one. And I think that this is one where they found ones that look good from a numbers perspective. Um, if I'm just looking at the Air DNA comps and I wasn't really thinking about anything about the physical aspects of the neighborhood, because remember, I'm a little bit worried about the parking because of the school right in front and that's in the no street parking. I'm a little bit worried that there's no pool. Although some of the comps did fine without it, but I think over time, more and more pool properties are going to dominate. At least in the Texas markets, places like San Antonio where it's super hot, and I throw Houston in there all day long. Um, those are the big things for me. Uh, and it is just like it's not a very wow property, right? And maybe there are plans to do something more with it, but I'll just give you an example, right? Like let's look at their other one that I bought so when we compare it to this, right? Let me see. This is another one that they have that I bought a piece of, and I just think it's such a the home itself has more character. It's got more curb appeal from the front. It's got an awesome pool. The inside just looks, and the difference is this is already set up, and so maybe they're going to do some of this furnishing, and well, they're definitely going to furnish and decorate it, but maybe they'll maybe once it's done, um, it becomes a little bit more wow. But I think if I'm a potential guest and these are the first pictures that I'm met with versus these are the first pictures that I'm met with, um, I mean, these are just not comparable properties at all, and they're both in the same market, and we spent a lot more on this one. The price for this one was significantly higher, um, but the income I think should be as well. I'm gonna get used to look. I'm not super used to reading their stuff yet. So that's their cash flow. Yeah, we're talking about 40 million, right? So 40 million. I was trying to do 40%, and I said million because it's a million. Sorry about that. Super late. I need to stop soon, and I will. But I just want to make a couple more small points. But so yeah, 400,000 more than the six. So that's a 40% discount from this million. That's where the 40 came in. Sorry about that. But so it is, they're not extremely comparable because of that difference in price point. But I think over time, more and more people are moving towards something like this versus a home like this. Now, maybe they make this really wow on the inside. Maybe they stick a pool in the backyard, although it didn't seem like that was, they just talk about it being massive and, good for outdoor activities and pets. Um, at least that gives them the potential to do it. But I really think, yeah, I think, just because I don't like the spot crime map, I don't like the street parking situation. Uh, in that combination, making me worried about guests parking their cars in the front yard. That and just not having a pool. I'm just not excited enough about it to want to jump in and buy this one. So I think I'm going to skip it for now. Just remember, just because I don't buy one of these doesn't mean it's not the right one for you. One of the things is you have to look at what are your options, what are your alternatives. Um, there is a lot to like about it, but it's so strange to me to have. It's very rare that I see ones that I'm so excited about the Airdna. I mean, the comps on that look just so good. Without a bunch of pool properties. I mean, you had one or two in there, but it wasn't like um, I expected them all to when I saw that high of a number. And then to combine that with the spot crime map just doesn't. It's really tough for me to understand what's happening there, right? And so maybe it's one that I'll revisit because I'm sure it'll be for sale for a little bit longer. They just put it up a couple of days ago. Um, maybe it has something to do with the proximity to the college campuses. I think that's got to create a lot of demand on the Airbnb side, and maybe it's demand from people who are not going to be so sensitive to the area because they're whoever it is they know goes to school right there and they're in that same area all the time. I know when I went to law school, I lived in Camden, New Jersey, because that's where the law school I went to was, and the year I moved there, it was like the number one most dangerous city, or at least top five most dangerous cities in the U.S. But on the campus, I felt really safe, and I walked home, a couple blocks away, and it wasn't a big deal. And people would come visit me there but but they'd be like, oh, Camden, that's terrifying. So, maybe it's a similar thing. Maybe that, certain, even though it's close to that area, it's just like on the edge. I mean, I'm not sure. But when I don't know, my answer is no, right? Like, there's no reason. It's not like this is such a compelling deal that I just need to take that risk no matter what, right? So we got 16.4% IRR is what they're looking at here. Okay, well, we got this one that I was felt much better about, and 16.2. And it wasn't as if this spot crime was perfect, but there wasn't a shooting a few doors down. And that might be a timing thing, right? I mean, that's part of it. Um, but it's also, the pool to me is a huge deal, even though it is a lot more expensive. It looked like it's going to get there. I actually really like that this was a duplex too, so that excuse me, was part of why I jumped on that. Um, One of the things that I do really like about these platforms though is you can make a very small bet, right? I could buy a couple $100 worth of this, and probably, and that's the other thing I thought about when I thought about not buying this is as I've been on the platform, when they're like trying to raise money for each of the new properties, sometimes they're doing these like little sales where it's like, oh, if you buy so much of this one, you get a little bit of that one. Or if you buy this one this weekend, you'll get extra something dollars or a couple, some different percent. So I'm going to hold out and, it's not like I hate it. If I got this one and I got some bonus money, I might jump on it. Even if I think that it's going to struggle a little bit, that's the other thing too, is they're not projecting where those, they're not projecting 120 in revenue. They're projecting 96,000. Maybe they're taking some of this stuff into account when they came up with that number. Um, It'd be really interesting, they don't give a lot. They give beautiful numbers on this website, and it's one I wish some of the other websites would copy, but they don't really give you very much narrative. They don't really tell you, you get a blurb here and there about what they're doing. But I think that, exactly what the plan is and exactly what the thought process is for some of the projections would be really interesting to see. When they have these comps, right, that they're showing, I'd love them to say, hey, we think, and they're below all of these ones that they picked out, right? But I'd love them to explain what they think is different from these ones, right? Is it really just that they're trying to be conservative, or do they get that there are aspects of these that are significantly better? Um, I'd love to know the answer to that, and I don't know. I don't know what is their bull case is only 108. So I mean, it seems to be acknowledging that they're fundamental, that there's something, about the property itself that's going to make it not hit these numbers. And I don't think it's just that this is 4.5 baths and that's got an extra bathroom, right? So in any case, I think that I've sort of done this. I'm starting to just repeat myself too much, and I'm sorry. Sometimes I do that towards the end. Just want to make sure that I'm all getting all the points out. But that's all I'm going to talk about for today. Until next time, I am going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.